Hey, Bruce Kittle here with Emma, and we are sitting on the stage at Operation Freedom Paws, as you can see, OFP. The show coming up, it's an unbelievable show. So Operation Freedom Paws matches veterans and other folks with certain limitations or opportunities and or disabilities with service dogs, and it's an amazing program.
Rescue service dogs.
Rescue service dog. They rescue all their pups and then put them through the training after screening them and all that. You'll hear all that story, but we sit down with their founder and executive director, Mary Cortani, and then also we have two vets who's talked to us about their experience. And you get a little bit of their transition, their military experience and their transitions they come out, but why Operation Freedom Paws has been so important to them. And you meet their dogs, Loki and Huey, so super upcoming stars, no doubt. So anyway, amazing show about the healing that's taking place and the way in which matching with a canine service dog has helped them reclaim their life, build their confidence, and re-engage the world. So it's a great show, and we hope you enjoy it very, very much. Bam! All right.
All right, ready?
3, 2, 1 it.
3,
2, 1. Action! All right. Bruce Kittle, Emma Kittle here with the Hidden Pearls podcast, sitting down with Mary Cortani, the founder, executive director, and all things puppy world here at Operation Freedom Paws. So, Mary, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right. So,
we're actually on location right now.
Yeah.
You might hear a plane and some construction. So if you're on the podcast, I would invite you to watch the digital version on YouTube because the show is going to be really good too. But either way, Mary, welcome to the Hidden Pearls podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. So I've got a little bit of bio here. I was just going to kind of go through, and then we can kind of come back and talk a little bit about that. But we want to do a little bit about your background. So, President, Executive Director of Operations and Founder. So we got all that. U.S. Army veteran, and you had in your bio Vietnam era. So we can kind of come talk a little bit more about your entry and your experience there. A certified Army Master Instructor of Canine Education. Okay. An American Kennel Club Certified Canine Good Citizen Evaluator. Hope I'm getting all this right. And training dogs for more than 44 years, which started in the military. So you've prepared dogs for work in sentry, patrol, narcotic, and explosive detection. Trained dogs for assistance in wilderness search and rescue, and has expertise in canine behavior modification. And you've got a tech background in business, so you've done a few other things, and dog training, and you founded OFP in 2010. And we'll come back to this story. Hopefully you were a CNN Top 10 hero in 2012 for all the things that you were doing and a few other awards. We'll come back to that. So did I get kind of that right?
You absolutely did.
Unbelievable. Look at that. So we're off to a great start. So obviously you know dogs really, really well. So we want to kind of start a little bit with your story. So maybe tell us just briefly kind of where you grew up and kind of your family background. Because I believe your love of dogs kind of started as you were growing up, if I have that story correct.
You do. So very first and foremost, I am not an expert on dogs.
Okay.
I just have a lifelong experience with dogs. And through that comes observation. I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, and I had a neighbor who was sight impaired, who had a guide dog. In addition to having my own dogs in my life, I was fascinated by how this guide dog helped him to navigate the world. And I got to know Ken really well because even at a young age, I would get a nickel a letter for reading his mail for him, and got to understand his dog's name was Kelly, who was a German Shepherd, and got to understand how Kelly helped Ken to get out into the world. And I was always fascinated by that. So I didn't have a lot of opportunities growing up as a child for college or other things. And I knew that I wanted something more. There was something inside of me. And I was one of those kids, if the bird was, had a broken wing or, there was an animal that was hurt. It's funny because Santa Cruz Veterinary, which is much different today, I was always taking it there and they just like, okay, Mary, and they would take whatever happened, I don't know, but they always led me to believe that the animal is taken care of. So animals have always played an important role. That love and fascination for the working animal, especially the dog. So I knew in high school that I wanted to join the military, and I joined when there was a thing called the Women's Army Corps. And I went into basic training as a WAC and came out as the Army. And I joined specifically to be a military police canine handler.
Okay. And just so, what year did you graduate high school, and what year would you have entered then?
1975.
75. Okay.
What made you like think that from an early age that you wanted to join the military?
Looking at options, what would make a difference and what would give me the best options. Not, I came from a dysfunctional family, and breaking the cycle of poverty, looking at something different to do. The military was the option. And I also grew up patriotic. I grew up in a time where I can tell you where I was when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated. I saw the impact on my mother. Patriotism was talked about. And it wasn't just, for guys to go in the military. There was ways that women could serve too. And looking at having a future, having a career. And I went in not knowing if I'd stay in, how long I'd stay in, but wanting to do something more. And I guess even inside that wanting to serve but not understanding it as a kid was there.
Right. Kind of had that notion of it, but in reality probably didn't know fully and clearly exactly what it meant.
Yeah.
But going to go chase it. So, okay. So we enter in, and then, well, go ahead and take us down that story then about so 75, Vietnam era, the war's been going on for a while, and we're within that, starting to wind it down and try to get out of there.
Right.
So as you enter then, tell us about your military experience, and I know you said you went in as a WAC, and then you had some military experience with the dogs, and how did all that work out for you?
Yeah, so went through military police school, went to a temporary duty assignment while I fought my way into the Canine Corps, got into the Canine Corps.
When you say fought in,
Dog fights?
Well, I'm going to interpret some gender issues,
Yes.
gender bias about women taking certain roles within the military. Because I guess I just want to throw that out. 75, you entering the military, you can say that they had a spot for women, but super different than it is now. And that's not to minimize what women go through now. There's still there's obviously some issues, but I think in 75, you're quite the trailblazer on the women's front there.
Yeah, and there were a lot of trailblazers before me as well. But yeah, there was gender bias, and there was a belief that females couldn't do certain jobs. And as we've seen over the years, that's changed a little, but still exists in some of the military occupational skills. So, I don't like to emphasize what a struggle it was, because I think that made me stronger. But to say that there was hazing, harassment, you don't belong here, other things that went along with that, absolutely. We're not here to talk about my story. We're here to talk about our client's story. But I don't think I would be as strong as I am today had I not gone through those experiences. Okay. So, having fought my way into the Canine Corps, became a handler. I got invited to come back as an instructor because they realized they couldn't beat me, so they might as well have me join them. I am stubborn. I am a red-headed, blue-eyed, female. And it changed my world because you have to go through a master instructor program. You work with all of the guys, some of which were Vietnam vets that handled dogs in Nam, with life experience for the different disciplines. And it opened my eyes even more to what animals are capable of, especially when you get into the detection world, whether it's to find a suspect out in a field or to find narcotics or explosive detection. Their nose is phenomenal. And it just continued to propel my love for working dogs going forward. So I served 9 years on active duty, and then served in active reserves and guard for another 6 years. But I had the same transitional struggle just deciding I was going to get out of the military at 9 years that anyone who has served in the military is going to go through. The law of hierarchy of need in the pyramid, we don't realize when we're in there and serving that basic rung on that pyramid is being provided. We don't think about it, right? And so when you're out and you don't have a job, you don't have a paycheck, if you don't have family that's there to support you or a place to go, you struggle. I was fortunate, I floundered. I had some friends that lived up in Boston that said, Mary, come up here, live with us, figure out if you want to go to school. And that's when I got into, being an electronic technician and a computer engineer, and got my degree. But if I did not have that support, I could have wound up homeless like a lot of veterans do. And I struggled. I struggled for 2 years while I tried to figure out how to make it work and move to the next step. So imagine that's without having an injury or a disability, right? And that's what I look at every day is what is it like for those that do have? How do they survive? And what can we do to make sure that they don't take their lives?
Okay, so if you went in around 75, so 9 years, so coming out.
1984.
Okay, so 84, and then you're in the Guard, the reserves for another 6 years after that. But that's that transition period where you go back to school, kind of trying to figure those kind of pieces out. Did you, as you were going through that, I guess, anything else about that transition? So clearly you had overall a positive experience with the military, though you came out with your love of dogs and all that kind of stuff. But that transition, you ended up going tech instead of staying with dogs. Was that a deliberate decision or just kind of survival mode?
No, it was a deliberate decision not to stay with dogs. So back in 1975, and I don't know when it stopped, but the military trained working dogs for not only every branch of the military, but for Customs, Secret Service, public law enforcement. And I could have applied and gone into a bunch of different agencies. However, I couldn't handle a dog. And I will tell you from personal experience, when you have worked with a working canine at your side, there is something that occurs. That dog will only react out of what it's been taught and instinct. A human being at some point will react out of emotion. And emotion is when it gets dangerous and bad things can happen. And so knowing that, I opted not to stay in the law enforcement field, which added to what am I going to do?
Right, okay.
So in that time then, is it more like identifying that you're having a lot of emotions and maybe some strife going on, or that you don't want to put that on a dog? Or like, how does that play into the whole situation? Or I guess your decision to not stay with dogs?
So, how do I say this? You can get into a situation, it could be a domestic, it could be child abuse, it could be something that could be a moral or a triggering issue for you, where your human emotion will take over and you will react from that emotion, and it overtakes all of your training, right? Dogs don't do that. So dogs are, in my opinion, the absolute best partner in the world. And why, if I couldn't have a dog starting out, I didn't want to stay in law enforcement. And that's not to take anything away from law enforcement and what they do every day. I have nothing but respect and admiration for them.
All right. And I'm just going to tie in for our regular listeners. So we're all mindfulness, meditation, breathwork based. That's kind of all the premise. So we're always talking about that. And we've taught classes for the emerging vets and players groups on mindfulness and breath and all that kind of stuff. So just taking that back. So we talk about all the time, that's one of the pieces of mindfulness and creating greater self-awareness so that we understand when those emotions are getting triggered. And we talk all the time that we are not our emotions. Our emotions just arise. They're not right or wrong. They just are. But it's learning how to recognize them in the moment and then being able to create a break so that this pause between stimulus and instead of reacting, trying to choose our response. And that's really the art of mindfulness and trying to do that. And I hear that's really what you're saying in that moment, is that as human beings, we often struggle with that because we get pushed, that button gets shoved, all of a sudden that emotion kicks off, and it is so powerful sometimes that we go into that reacting instead of being able to choose our response. Where our canine friends, they're a little bit more adapt to that because they've been trained and they can suppress whatever maybe that instinctual thing might be, but they can respond in the way that they've been trained to do so. So pretty powerful that way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was getting a flag offline there. Okay. Well then, all right. So, all right, we do all the tech piece, and I know then we come back. So let's get in. So we end up in January 2010 with Operation Freedom Paws. So there's kind of a chunk in there, from mid 80s up until 2010. Did you start working with dogs again then eventually, somewhere along the line?
I did. I've always trained dogs for family, friends, myself, and did search and rescue. And I stayed in high tech until 2001 when I had a second major event in my life that was a transition. I had worked my way up through high tech. I started in information technology before there was such a thing as information technology.
Okay.
I was an executive in a startup, the only female, and we were getting ready to either go public or be purchased. A company came along and made an offer that was too good for the board to say no to. We got purchased, and within 2 months, a new CEO was put in place, and I am not your typical female. I am not going to brown nose, and I kind of am a straight shooter, blunt, direct, and to the point. I didn't fit the mold, so for the first time in my life, and I mean first time in my life, I got fired.
Bam.
Yeah, and I'm an older female executive in Silicon Valley. So there's that rug from under the feet. How am I going to reinvent myself? What am I going to do? I opted to go to work for a city government for a year, at which point decided, I can't do this because you need to get the job done and stop the bureaucracy BS. And I was lost. And so I went into just training dogs for the public full time. Started up a small business again. I've owned my own a couple of times. And that led to Operation Freedom Paws because I was doing that. And in December of 2009, between Christmas and New Year's, so really 2010, I got a call from a Marine. And if you have ever spoken to somebody who's suicidal, you can tell even across a phone line. And he had been on a traditional service dogs waiting list for several years. They told him that if he could come up with, I think it was either $45,000 or $60,000, they'd bump him to the top. And this is back, we're talking 2010.
Right.
Post-traumatic stress or psychiatric service dogs weren't as common as they are today, right? And service dogs for our veterans definitely wasn't as common as it is today. And he was calling around trying to find a trainer who would help him find a dog and help him train the dog so that he had some hope. And at the time, I didn't understand what post-traumatic stress was. I didn't understand what kind of injuries that our veterans were coming home with, and how it was impacting their daily lives. So we chatted during that Christmas, New Year's time frame, and we were constantly talking. And in January of 2010, I made him a promise. I said, I don't have all the answers. I understand mobility dogs, I understand guide dogs. I haven't trained them, but if you're willing to go on this journey with me and take a chance on me, I'll help you. I don't have all the answers, but we'll go find them. And that started. So we found him a dog. I dove in and learned as much as I could. And that one veteran became 3 within a 30-day period of time. And what was funny is, as I made that promise to him, and he trusted me enough to take the chance, he asked me, what's it going to cost? And I said to him, nothing. I'm not going to charge you for this. And he broke down and he cried and he said, why? And I said, because it's the least I can do. You served. You're my brother in uniform, right? It may be a different branch, and I may say that you're a crayon eater, but, we served. Might be different uniforms, but we both raised our hands. And that began the journey. And the more I got into it, the first 20 months it was funded by savings and family and friends, and then the recognizing the need and what was being said about the number of suicides per day and the traumatic brain injuries and all of the other stuff that was affecting our veterans. And it wasn't just affecting post 9/11, which is what a couple other groups at the time were focused on. I made the conscious decision to, a veteran is a veteran, and I felt that because it wasn't until the 90s that females were recognized as veterans. And so it's
What were they before that?
I don't know what they called, but we couldn't call ourselves veterans.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was important to make sure that it was open to all. I had a good friend who said, Mary, you can't keep doing this at this rate. You really, really need to start a nonprofit. And that's what started the nonprofit.
Okay. And then just to kind of tie up that before 2010, you talked about your transition out of the military. And then when you went to, I guess, the reserves and all that kind of piece, as you were going through the tech world and still doing that, at some point before 2010, you'd gotten all the way out of the military there. But had your transition out of the military and being out of uniform and the sense of belonging and all those kind of things, had that raised its head? Had you kind of gotten through all of that? Or were there parts of that were still walking with you at all by 2010?
There were. So the camaraderie and the sense of belonging that you can have when in the military, I thought I would never find it again in my life. And surprisingly, starting Operation Freedom Paws brought it back full circle, but in a way that is so much deeper than when I served. That sense of community, that sense of camaraderie, that sense of shared experience, even though they may be different, it came full circle.
That's pretty cool. So, okay, well, let me, let's see if I'm, okay, here's a little bit about what I got on Freedom Paws. So here's what you do, and I'm just going to throw some stuff out, and then kind of clarify us, and then we'll kind of talk again. You've already kind of gone over how you got there, but so founded in 2010, 501c3, all that kind of stuff. We match dogs with individuals with physical, neurological, psychological, or mobility restrictions, including post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress, and/or traumatic brain injury, and probably some other stuff as well. Mission is to empower veterans and individuals with disabilities to restore their freedom to live life. And we have a vision of, through special therapeutic canine-human relationship, veterans and individuals with disabilities live an enriched life and engage in their communities. So we have all that, and we were talking before we got started. I'm just going to toss these out there and then let you kind of talk about your vision. In essence, though, and this is really true, our experience with like Jake Glazer with Merging Vets and Players, and when they put that whole thing together, it really was about their experience, and they're the part of the veterans is working with former professional athletes, because it's similar to when you take the uniform off, you've lost that sense of belonging. But it really was a crisis around suicide prevention with veterans. I mean, that really drove, because Jay had gotten through his MMA gym in LA, kind of exposed to all these vets, and then people weren't coming back, and the reason they weren't coming back is because they weren't with us anymore. Right. And so you talked a little bit about saving lives, saving marriages and relationships, and helping people get to a point. And again, we talked a little bit about healing, so we're going to come back to that. Is it never goes away. So like, and we've used this example. I used to do a lot of crime work with victims and being victimized. And we talk a lot about crumpling up the piece of paper, and you can try to flatten it, and it's still a piece of paper, and it's still 8 by 10, but it's got all those wrinkles, and you never get all those wrinkles out. And it's a little bit like that. And so talk to us a little bit of them. We talked about that mission. So tell us, as you were getting this off the ground, you had 2 or 3 matches, this thing's starting to go, and you start to incorporate as a nonprofit. What becomes the vision then, and how does all this kind of healing stuff unfold for you as you're trying to put the pieces together about how dogs with people with these kind of, I don't know, disabilities or limitations? How does that all fit together for you, and what are you learning about the healing process?
It's interesting. Everybody's healing journey is different. Everyone's experience is different. We may have commonalities, but our paths and our walking has been different. Something along the way told me that as I was doing the research, that it couldn't just be about training the dog. So in looking at it, it was when I was training in the military, we always trained the person, and they trained the dog, right? And when we'd go out and evaluate the teams who were out at the different military installations, it was about evaluating the dog and the team. How were they functioning? So somewhere in the back of my mind, that was always there. And there's a Chinese proverb that I learned a long time ago, that if I give you a fish, you'll eat for a day, but if I teach you to fish, you'll eat for a lifetime. So going into this, I knew that that was the approach that needed to be taken. But I also knew that even as wonderful as dogs are, you have to do more than just give them the dog and train them to train the dog for their need. You have to look at the whole person. And so in diving into what was going on within the service dog world, even looking at the guide world, prior to someone who is sight impaired receiving a guide dog, they have to go through some other training. They have to learn how to navigate without a dog, whether it's with a cane, with feel, living everyday life, right? Knowing that, but not quite understanding, right? It was intuitive, that some of that had to come into doing the training with the service dog for the veteran. And then understanding that trauma is trauma, it changes the brain. Well, how do we retrain that brain? What other things are out there? So I became a sponge in trying to absorb as much as I could. And that's when we looked at, the butterfly hug and mindfulness and breathing and talk therapy. What was being offered? How could it be incorporated to take a holistic approach to the healing? But then also, probably because of my own childhood experiences and what I was seeing with the veterans that were coming to the program, that lack of communication, that shutting off of the connection with their family, that isolation. How do we bring that back? Well, for me, my own personal experience throughout my lifetime was I could talk to my dog, right? They'd hold a secret. They didn't judge, right? And in finding my voice when I was in the military and my confidence, which is something that the military gave me, that sense of discipline, realizing that when I had a canine partner at my side and I was giving commands, I was communicating, but I had power. And it wasn't a power over the dog, it was a power in a relationship. And so how do you take that and translate that into a service dog who needs to alert and perform tasks for a human so that the family member can recognize what the dog's body language is saying and that this is what's going on with their partner, their spouse, right, their son, their daughter, and not react in the same way that they might have in the past. So the keys for me are, one, that our clients learn to communicate with the dog, which opens the door for conversation. Because as they start to communicate with the dogs, whether they're in public or they're at home, they start to have conversations about that dog, right? And they start to have a conversation that they may not have had in years, which opens the door for other conversations. Including the family to come and participate in the program, allows them to observe us saying, hey, what's your dog telling you? and that body language in the dog and seeing the change, which then allows them to ask a question in a different way that says, okay, what's going on with you? How are you feeling? What do you need? As opposed to judging and having that person go back into isolation because they're afraid to say what's going on in their head.
Okay, so let me just, for me, I'm getting two main cores out of there. One is the dog ends up being kind of a filter screening system that can look externally. So if we're talking about situational awareness and that self-awareness piece, on the one hand, the dog is able to kind of filter that for the vet, and with confidence, because the vet has that relationship with the dog, can kind of read the situation a little bit more better and improve that vet's confidence for dealing with those kind of social settings. And then the dog's presence also helps kind of calm and help that internal stuff that may be going on as well. Then I also heard you say, just by having a puppy or dog with you walking around, people go, oh, look at the cool dog. And it creates conversations in a way that vet might have avoided. If they go to the store, they're just going to get the milk and throw it in the cart and check out and leave because they don't want to deal with it. But if they have their dog, their confidence is increased, and it creates situations maybe to have some of those casual conversations. And it's a safe topic because everybody likes puppies or dogs, and so they can do that. So am I getting kind of where that strength
You are,
shows?
but it also involves trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Same
Because one of the first things we have to do is gain the trust of our clients, to trust us that we're going to help them and that we're not going to mess them over or lead them astray, okay? And so they have to learn to trust the dog. And that comes through the communication and the bonding and the relationship, which then allows that trust to go into other areas, that they trust that the dog has their back while they're in public in that social setting.
Yeah.
But the key to it is the dog's nose. So it's not the environment so much, because the dog is taught to be able to ignore the environmental stimulus, right? Unless it's a dangerous situation. It's the dog's ability to smell the chemistry changes in our bodies,
Got it. Okay.
right?
So-
that makes that work.
So as you talk about the chemical changes in our bodies, are those hormone based?
That's one of many. Because if you stop and think about this, the easiest one for folks to understand is diabetes, high and low blood sugars, right? So when your blood sugars change, there's an odor that gets sent off with that. Now, it's not an odor that you and I smell, right? But it's an odor that a dog's nose can smell. And so if the sugar changes and the dog alerts to it, the person knows to take action, take medicine, read the sugar levels, whatever it is, okay? So it's invisible, it's unseen. Well, when you have panic or anxiety, the easiest way for me to explain to you is stop and think about this. You're driving along and somebody comes along and cuts you off, right? Your adrenaline shoots through the roof, right? And it takes a while for it to come down. Well, you feel the effect of the adrenaline, but it's invisible, right? And there's the cortisols and just so many other things. We're made up of so much stuff. So hormones are a piece, but it is the unique chemistry of the body, which I'm still trying to figure it all out so I can explain it. But the dog's nose can smell it.
And when they do that, and then let's get into that a little bit about matching, so the needs of the vets and that. But when the dog notices that going on with do you call them a client or the handler, or what is it?
Yeah, we call them clients.
Clients, okay. And they recognize that that's going on, then the dog can help alert that to the client, and then help also with the intervention to kind of whatever response it might be appropriate.
Yeah, so let's say that they suffer from migraines, right? We have dogs that tell our veteran clients hours before the migraine is going to hit.
Because they can smell it.
They can smell that the chemistry is changing, right?
Yeah.
Or the physiological, electrical changes in the body. The dog tells them. Our clients can then take medication to prevent that migraine from becoming crippling, okay?
Early warning system.
Early warning system.
Cool.
Absolutely. Pain levels, right? Again, you can't see pain, but that pain you could be walking around and your normal could be a 3 or a 4, and all of a sudden it's shooting to a 6, a 7. Well, before it gets there, as it starts to rise, the dog performs a task and stops that person from moving and says, go sit down, drags them to go sit down. So it's not just the smell. The dog will alert, but the dog is performing a task, right? Because we have some things that can be considered performance versus tasks, but performance can actually become tasks. And an example of that is spatial barriers. Every single human being has a spatial bubble, okay? Yep. And it varies. And for our clients, that bubble is even larger. And what the dog does is you start out teaching it, which is performance, to do a block or a watch my back or a post, right? And then the dog is also associated with what the chemistry of that person is when they become uncomfortable because somebody's coming in, and goes into the performing the task of assuming it naturally.
So I have so many smell questions now. I mean, so
that's pretty cool.
Could you maybe take us through the training process? Because like, how do you tell them how to associate like this smell? I mean, I'm assuming that we all smell a little bit different.
We all do. We all have a unique chemistry.
Right.
Well, let's do the whole process, because I think we'll get.
Yeah.
So talk to us about application. So a vet is interested to hear about you guys. So there's an application process. What kind of assessment do you do with the vet? And then how do you go find and figure out what's the right kind of dog? And then lead us into the training that makes this work.
Well, first and foremost, we have a saying, you don't get the dog you want, you get the dog you need.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you probably every single veteran and first responder that has ever been through here wants a big, bad, keep everybody away dog, okay? We don't have breed bias here. It really, just as human beings are individual, so are the dogs. So you look at personality, temperament, drive. I look at 30 different things when we're evaluating the dogs to become service dogs, because not every dog can be a service dog. Every single dog will provide companionship and emotional support, but they don't have the workability, the work ethic, okay? Yep. The application process is you must have a letter from a doctor stating that you have a medical need for a service dog. Right, and there's a huge difference between emotional support and service. Service animals are covered by the ADA. Emotional support animals are covered by HUD or housing laws. And that distinction needs to be made, because there's a lot of folks that have dogs that they pass them off as service dogs. Service dogs perform tasks. They're taking care of a medical condition, whether it is seen or unseen, okay? The the doctor's letter has to be there. Not a therapist, but a MD, so a psychiatrist or an MD. There's an application process. Our application is online. We receive those. We respond and send out an email. So you think you want a service dog, because people think they want a service dog and they don't realize what it entails. Their lives will change. If they are given the opportunity to be matched with a service dog or have a service dog, their lives are changed. It's like having a toddler. You have to allow extra time to be able to go out. You have to allow the dog to go potty before you go into a store, right? You have to be respectful of the restaurant and not let the dog shake off in the restaurant. You have to understand what rights you're afforded, because the ADA is not giving the rights to the dog, it's giving the rights to you. And what's, acceptable for and what expected behavior having a service dog. So we go through all of that. And we also ask about commitment. For us, we're not having a trainer train the dog and then matching you and putting you through 2 or 4 weeks of a boot camp to learn the 60 to 100 commands that dog has learned. We're actually spending a minimum of 48 weeks with you, teaching you to not only train the dog for your specific medical needs, but how to utilize that dog to get the most benefit and be able to move forward in a way that is healing. You're never going to be completely healed, but you're going to be able to have the tools and the processes and the techniques with you to help you navigate everyday life and do the things that someone who is not injured or disabled takes for granted every day, like going to a grocery store or a movie theater.
Okay. So application process. So if you scare the heck out of them like that about the commitment level and between the training and what it means to have a dog and the commitment to that relationship, and they still say yes, then if they get they're in the window, then you have to go find a dog.
Well, what we'll do next is we'll have a phone conversation with them.
Okay.
And then we invite them in for an interview, and we sit down and talk face to face and get to know each other, because it is about trust and it is about commitment. We have a contract that they have to sign, and we have dogs that I've pre-selected, so I may, we know the personalities and temperaments of the dogs here based on what we're reading. And it's an old school. They used to teach reading body language in management classes years ago, right? Reading body language and truly listening, hearing what somebody is saying and what they're not saying is a lost art. We need to go back to doing that, because it would allow us to have better conversations and to really learn how to listen all over again. So that's all part of it. And then if they're accepted and they're willing to make that commitment, then we start the process. The dog doesn't go home with them right away, because we want to see. It's walk the walk, don't talk the talk. And then the journey starts, and we have them invite their family. If they come to us with their own dog, we will evaluate that dog the same way we evaluate the others. If the dog doesn't have what it takes, we talk about either rehoming or can we put another dog into the house with them. But it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay. So I matched. The dog seems to fit, and we start the training. So 48 weeks, almost a year.
If not longer.
Okay.
Because we go at their pace.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of getting the dogs? Like, how many dogs are you getting on a regular basis?
So we try and have anywhere from 10 to 12 dogs here, but finding the dogs aren't the problems. We pull our dogs out of shelters and rescue groups. We don't breed. That doesn't mean we don't get purebred dogs from time to time. But it's working with the shelters and the rescue groups, and I have several folks out there that I've trained on what to look for, how to evaluate, and then they'll call and say, hey, I've got this dog, I really want you to take a look. We will not take a dog that's over 2 years old unless it is a really special dog, because we want the longevity and service life. And we don't want to cause another loss. A lot of our clients have experienced loss, and we don't want to add more to that. We want the long relationship. But we also try and prepare them for when those end of life or sudden occur as well.
Right. And then how do you test each dog's nose? How do you know that their nose is up to the task?
Oh, my goodness. So treats, number one.
Okay.
And I have some really high-value treats. Toys, are they treat motivated? Are they toy motivated? And also observation. Did they come up and sniff you? Every single dog will do something called read P-mail, right? But not every dog has its nose turned on. We do a huge disservice as human beings to dogs in the sense that we turn off their noses. Doesn't mean it goes completely off, but they're not using it to their full capability. So when we turn our heads because we see something or we hear something, where dogs mimic and communicate through body language, they mimic us. So the dog that is scanning constantly has learned to do that because the human is doing that. And so we play a lot of find it games, a lot of scent games. We get, for them to know they're human, we make the handler, the client, put the dog's nose underneath their armpits and on their neck. There's 5 spots on your body where your scent is the strongest, and you are dropping tens of thousands of skin cells every day that contains your scent. So your neck, your armpit, your waistband, your groin, and your feet. As women, we have one more. It's our bra line. It's all the places that we sweat and we don't realize that we're sweating. So being cuddly, getting close with the dog is what gets their scent embedded into that dog.
Okay. And then what about the difference between the diagnosis of the client? I mean, just between PTSD or if they've had brain injury, are those different enough that you really have to, okay, so those, it kind of all fits together if the dog otherwise has the right
Right.
attributes.
You may
Okay.
you may train different tasks, right? It may be task specific for certain disabilities and injuries, but the approach
Yeah,
is the same.
gotcha. Okay. All right. Is that enough nose questions?
I think so. I mean, I was
You're
kind
kind
of
of
picturing you
fascinated.
like a chemist in the background, like this is a stress scent, or like it's fascinating though.
You can do that, but
Right.
everybody's different.
How many service dogs have you turned out?
Oh my goodness. We just added a couple of weeks ago our 510th client.
Wow.
And we have, out of that 510, we have 43 or 44 actively participating at some stage of training. We don't wait until we have a group. We add as we can. So, and I do that intentionally as well, because they will learn from each other, right? Experienced, inexperienced. We have graduates. We stay in contact with our clients all the time. They'll come back and pop in for training just to visit because this is their sanctuary. And we also mix the public in. So the first hour of every training session is with the public training their dogs for just basic obedience. Because the one thing as a veteran I did not want to do was deal with a civilian. Even though when we get out, we are civilians, right? But the mindset is different. And, you know, I had a veteran tell me recently that it was really hard to talk to someone who was a non-veteran because they didn't get it. And I reminded them, if we have conversations and explain, they might.
Well, they're not going to get it if we never talk to them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I never served, but we've spent the last 2 years primarily talking to veterans and listening to stories, and so slowly through that process, and then also the former athletes that we have about their experience as well. So, but it is a process. Well, we can kind of keep all that in mind. I wanted to talk about the OFP recipe for success. So that's kind of out there. I don't know if it's really, so I'll just list them off, and if you want to say a few things about that, but I thought that was it's good to have kind of idea about where we're going and how we're going to get there. So those are, to me, kind of the value characteristics and attributes about how you're going to proceed with those things. Okay, so the RECIPE is respect, empathy, community, integrity, perseverance, and excellence. So where did those come from and how do they fit in?
So those are my moral compass.
Okay.
They come from who I am and how I try and live my life every day. And everyone that works here pretty much has those as well. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a direct, blunt, to the point, honest, and we will never be experts, but if we strive for excellence and work towards being the best that we can be and realize that we are not going to have all the answers all the time, then we're being honest with those that we communicate with and as well as ourselves.
Right. Okay. I get it. It's good to have a compass. Mm-hmm. Not always, you'll still get lost every now and then, but
absolutely.
At least you got a chance to kind of work it out. Well, then let's talk about kind of the outcomes that you've seen. So obviously the vets come in with some expectation of, and we've talked a little bit about it today, about just that healing journey and that process, and we've already mentioned it's very unique for everybody about what that journey looks like. And again, it's not trying to get to zero, but it's about making things manageable for people so that they can kind of reintegrate back in a way that kind of provides them meaning and purpose and those kind of things. So, I can just kind of, you had some outcomes listed, so you can kind of talk about these, or maybe we'll just go. But giving vets a sense of mission and purpose again in their lives through that relationship, sense of accomplishment and renewed confidence, seeing fellow veterans restore their sense of purpose. So there is that kind of collegiality or that commonality in the connections. So that's how it's going to help. Build and restore important relationships, reductions in anxiety, depression, and suicide, and building confidence and independence. So why does having a service dog do that for people?
Well, first off, the dog is not a magic pill, okay? And it takes a lot of hard work on the individual's part. And we stress that all the time. But it comes back to some basic things. If we learn to communicate in a different way, which you have to do with the dog, right? And in order to have the respect of the animal, right, you have to have some patience. You have to be able to praise. You have to be able to command. And you also have to be able to correct, and not in a mean way, right? But those translate into everyday life. And whether it's, a parent with a child, right? Or a spouse, sibling, whatever it is, it's communication. So that is the very first piece that happens. And the fact that the dog doesn't judge. The dog gives, everybody says unconditional love. Unconditional love is but one piece of it. And when the right dog is selected and that dog wants to be with and do nothing more than to please, you kind of let your guard down without even realizing you're letting your guard down. And along with that, and the hard work on yourself, means you have to be honest with yourself, right? And it's like having a therapist with you 24 hours a day. So in doing that, right, the dog is going to say BS and continue to try and alert.
Going to call you on your shit.
When you're trying to blow them off and say, no, I'm going to push through this.
Right.
So that starts that transition. And that's when you will see the progress going forward.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, we did a 3-day equine workshop, healing workshop with vets. It was obviously horses and dogs are different, but there's a sense about the animal is just, there's no bullshit.
There's none.
They're going to call you, so there's a mirror there. And like, if you're out of alignment or you're not balanced or if you're bringing the bullshit, they're going to show you and they're going to let you know. And it just forces you, like, I got to own that. And I don't want to say fix it, but I got to own it in a way and get it cleansed a little bit in order to re-engage this relationship in the way that I want to.
Yeah.
And the animal holds you accountable to that.
Well, and anger is a really good thing to take a look at, right?
Yeah.
Anger and rage. If we're full on angry and we're enraged, the dog doesn't want to be around us. Our energy, our chemistry says danger, right? So they repel. They go the opposite direction. And that's a tool that they can, and they get, in the beginning, the clients get really upset. Why doesn't the dog want to be with me? Well, you're acting like a jerk. Let's take a look at this, right? And again, what do you have to do? You have to be honest with yourself and do the hard work on yourself and learn to deal with it differently.
Yeah. Well, in our classes, we talk about the 4 stages of the self. And the first one is self-awareness, knowing the self. And the second one is healing the self. And then you can finally be yourself, and then you share yourself. And so those are kind of the stages that we talk about. And it's that thing. That first one is, it's a bitch, though.
Yeah, it is.
There's no way, because a lot of stuff about us that we don't. Okay, well then, here's what, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So anywhere you want to kind of pull the dogs in the training and all that
I think talking to them now would be a good, because that tails right along with what you're...
Well, let me do this. This is the last segment. I just want to talk to you about, and particularly maybe take you back into the 70s when you joined the military. I just mean your mental approach. So I guess just because this is also kind of an athletic thing that we deal with athletes as well. And so this whole mindset, mental prep and all that. So, what personal practices have you had? And I guess, just some of the barriers that you faced. I know you don't want to make that story about that, so we don't have to do that. But at the same time, I mean, at some point when you had setbacks or felt resistance and all that kind of stuff, what did you do with your own kind of mindset? Like you just kind of bridled back up, stepped back in, faced all that resistance and worked through it. Like, what are the things that you did that gave you the strength to do that? Because I think for some, that would be really intimidating. It'd be easy to turn around and be pushed out or not go for the things that you wanted to and that kind of thing. So what kind of mindset did you bring all the time? And then what things do you currently do that kind of help you, keep that edge or keep that focus that you've been talking about?
I don't know that I can answer you honestly. There was something in me that said, you will survive, you will fight. And I'm going to be thinking about that because I really haven't. What is it within an individual that makes them resilient versus non-resilient?
I mean,
And I've
where
asked
did it come
myself,
from? Yeah.
I've asked myself that a million times. What I do today is I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of, not as much as I should, self-care to get some downtime. I have an amazing partner that is amazingly supportive, that knows that I just need quiet time and to decompress. But I also count my blessings every day. I really start my day with things that I am grateful for. I believe gratitude can make a huge difference. And I am blessed and grateful that I get to work with some amazing clients, their families, some staff, and that I have a partner who, for the last 13 plus years, has pretty much not seen me.
Okay.
Right? That has made a lot of sacrifices to see this be successful.
Okay. So before we wrap that up, then I'm going to have you introduce them. The other thing that we talked a little bit before we got on was something you called the Yacht Club.
Yes.
Just because it's another component of kind of the overall process here. So yes, I'm going to get matched. Yes, I have my dog and all that kind of stuff. But there's some other pieces that you guys do here to help vets continue that healing process. So tell us a little bit about the Yacht Club then, just and how that fits in, and what's the philosophy with that?
Right. So Yacht Club is one of many pieces. The Yacht Club started out as an anger management. The guys and gals named it Yacht Club because they're all in the same boat and have to have their oars in the water to move forward. Yep. And they do that together. We have a therapist available at every training class. Outside of training class, we partner with an equine therapy group that also has a group for not only the veterans but the first responders, as well as the children of our clients. And we try and take that holistic approach. We do the Yacht Club. We have puppy yoga that we end every class with, which is a tool that they can use that takes a combination of modalities that have been out there to treat for mental illness. And even if you don't have mental illness, if you have a physical ailment and you're in pain, breathing and meditation and those kind of things can reduce the pain levels. So, and incorporating the dog into everything that we do.
Okay.
And we include the families. Families are very much an important part of this.
Right, because if you do this healing process without helping that healing process, and we've just been, my brother-in-law has been on the show a couple times with us, but long time career, 21 year, a couple deployments, but had a wife and 4 kids the whole time he was back. And the home piece is a lot more difficult than people want to imagine.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been through it. So
one of my greatest blessings is I've had a baby blamed on me. They were on the verge of divorce, and then 2 years later, they had a baby. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, okay. Anything else about Operation Freedom Paws that you want to say that we haven't asked before we have you introduce our next guest?
How was it being, because you were the Salute to Service Award winner.
Oh, the Salute to Service Award. It was an honor, and it was a shock. They definitely pulled off surprising me with coming out with the $20,000 award. So.
And let's just say a word for listeners that don't know. So NFL, they have a Salute to Service Award. So, and folks know that George was nominated as the player from the Niners for the Salute to Service, but each team then has an organization that they honor and they represent or recognize as a Salute to Service working for military veterans. And Operation Freedom Paws this year was that honoree through the San Francisco 49ers. So that's
and it gave 16 of our veteran clients an opportunity to do something that people take for granted, like going to a football game. Yeah. It was a highlight, and they are still talking about it weeks later.
Yeah. So we had the great fortune. So they hosted us, and we were on the top floor of the Niners at Levi's. And it's quite the view. We had an opportunity to meet some of the vets, and it was really great. And they had a chance to go to the game, so it's been really exciting. So, okay, so thank you for bringing that up. Anything else about Operation Freedom Paws before you introduce our guests?
No, let's introduce.
All right, well, tell us who we're going to talk to.
So you are going to talk to Ramon with his service dog, Huey.
Okay.
And then you will also be talking with Morfit and his service dog, Loki. and they are both veterans. They are both graduates of the program, and it is amazing where they are going and what they still have in their futures to do.
Okay. And then the last question I just want for you, because we kind of end all our podcast guests this way, is what are some things? So the Hidden Pearls podcast is called Hidden Pearls because Operation Freedom Paws, for example, would be a hidden pearl. It's one of those things that some people know about, but not as many. And so there's a lot of people and organizations out there trying to help, heal, serve the world, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. What are some things, though, that in your life that you've experienced in or currently that give you hope?
Oh, lots of things.
Okay.
Something that is really simple is when you would smile at somebody who doesn't have a smile on their face, or you say hello, and this one for me resonates with me because smiling at somebody, nodding your head, acknowledging they exist can make their day, because so many people feel like they go through life unseen and unrecognized. For me, having grown up in Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz is a world in and of itself, community, or a university community, and there's no real easy way to see this. I can't tell you somebody's nationality by their last name. It's not in me. I don't see what I see is a human being. I don't see the color of their skin, okay? And so I got into basic training, and here I am, this 18-year-old from Santa Cruz, California, in a barracks with 40 other women from all over the United States. And there was this woman named Joyce, who was African American, who was standing across from me as we're lined up at the end of our bunks on day one. And in Santa Cruz, you nodded, you said hello. I nod, right? Because I can't say hello because we're lining up. And later that day and the next day, she's in my face like, what is my problem? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So, what is your problem? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was just saying hi, right? That I see you. And she's, no, you weren't. You're trying to start a fight with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not, right? And so we got into this, and she really thought I was trying to start a fight with her, because where she grew up in New York, that was bring it. And we became the best of friends, but it opened my eyes to the world as to how different and how something as simple as a smile and a nod could have a different impact. So I've carried that with me. So something as simple as a smile, saying hello, right? Holding the door, have a nice day. They can all make a difference.
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect. And that's what we do with these guys.
Okay, well,
Let's meet the plus.
Yeah, let's. Okay, hey, we are sitting down with Ramon Reyes and his service dog through Operation Freedom Paws, Huey Reyes. So, Ramon, thank you so much. You've been super patient as we were putting everything together and had our interview with Mary, and so you kind of heard all that. So, could you just give us a short introduction? I got your name already, but I guess branch of service and when you served.
All right, so I was in the Army, and I served from '95 to 2012, so a little over 17 years.
Okay. And can you just tell us a little bit about kind of what you did while you were in the military and any deployments?
So I was infantry, and I did do 2 deployments in 02, 03, and then my other one in 07, 08, and it was to Iraq.
Okay. All right. And we talked a little bit before. Normally we'd kind of get a little bit more into that. We're kind of looking at the post afterwards, so maybe we'll come back to that story. But so tell me again, what year did you got out of the military? What year? And
so I got out in 2012, and I didn't get out under my own terms. It was under the military term. You know, it said I wasn't fit for duty no more, so it was kind of like a blow to the stomach. But it is what it is. And I mean, I went through so much stuff after I got retired. But 2016, I went to a trauma program in Menlo Park and got diagnosed with severe PTSD. But that wasn't the first time. I mean, it was back in '09 when I actually got diagnosed with it, and traumatic brain injury. And ever since '09, it's been a roller coaster ride. And it wasn't until the end of 2016, no, the beginning of 2016, when my psychiatrist said, hey, you know what? I feel that you could be use of a service dog. And in my mind, like, what the heck's a dog gonna do for me? And he's the one that actually told me, hey, I'm gonna link you with the Operation Freedom Paws, get a hold of them. And so I called. They told me you have to fill that application and whatnot. And so I filled it out. And like I said, this was at the beginning of 2016. And towards the end of 2016, it was almost a year. And I was getting frustrated because, I didn't know what else to do. And I remember I came in, my niece, she had a German Shepherd, had puppies. And I went, I looked at the puppy, and I was like, you know what, maybe if I go to OFP and talk to, Mary, I hadn't met Mary before, and ask her, hey, if I'm able to bring in a dog, would that help me, speed up the process? And so I came and I asked who Mary was, and they pointed out, hey, that's Mary. So I went up to her and I asked her, and I spoke with her, and she was like, no, we have a process here. You can't just come in and
Bring a dog.
And right there, like, oh, I was so upset. I was upset, and I left home, and my wife was with me, and I was like, man, you know what? Screw it. And, I'm giving up. And a week later, I got the phone call, hey, we want you to come in for an interview. And I came in, and we did the interview and everything, and, told them my story and all that. And then they asked me, he's like, how much do you want your life to change? I was like, 100%.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know what else to do anymore. And at first, they brought in a dog. I can't remember what type of dog it was, but the dog came up to me, and I always wear hats. And Mary goes, can you take off your hat? And I took off my hat, and the dog right away just cowered up, stepped back, tucked the tail in. And I thought I did something wrong. I was like, well, what'd I do? And she goes, it's not you. It's just we found out that the previous owner always used to hit him with the hat. So he was, the dog became terrified of the hat. And so then they brought Huey in, and it's like, he melted my heart. We just bonded, and from that day on.
There we go.
From that day on, February 17th, when I started the program. February 2017 is when him and I got.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we finally got linked up.
Well, then I guess I want to ask you a little bit about the training and that, but just when she asked you about you wanting your life to change, and so and again, can't go into the whole story, but I mean, how would you summarize some of the things that you were experiencing at the time that had motivated you to look at getting a service dog? What kind of things were going on in your life that after leaving the military?
I was losing my family. Ended up becoming an alcoholic. I was using substance to numb the pain, to try to forget, to try to get that good night's sleep. My children wouldn't talk to me. There's just a lot of stuff. I mean, and I know I'm not the only veteran that's gone through this. Here I am. The military taught me to defend myself against these man-made weapons, small arms fire, mortar rounds. But when it came to the aftermath in my head, I stood defenseless. I didn't know how to fight it. It was like fighting an enemy that I had no idea that existed. And just coming to terms with having this disability that I can't really see, it took a toll on me.
Right.
And so I came in this program broken. And Huey and Mary, they changed all that.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about that. So you get matched, and then tell us a little bit how the training went, and then what has, I'm feeling better already. You just said with me. So just how is that training and being in the program, and how has Huey
So
helped you?
when we first started, it's like, there's other programs out there that they give you a service dog and it's already trained. And with this program, what makes it,
Sorry. Just, yeah, it's an overhead. Yeah, Huey's killing it.
I think you're more nervous than I am.
Huh?
I think you're more nervous than I am.
Because she's helping me. Yeah.
No, but what makes this program so different than others is like we actually train with the dog. It's a year-long commitment, 2 times out of the week. And you get to know the dog and the dog gets to know you. And we both learn from each other. And I mean, it's a great program. I mean, you have to put in the work. It's repetitive a lot of times, but it's repetitive for a reason. But as long as you put in the work and you're motivated to do it, it's a great achievement.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life. How does Huey kind of help you on a day-to-day? Like, what kind of ways does Huey interact with you?
So, I mean, we've learned a lot. So, what he does for me is, I remember, the first time I took him home was back in, I want to say like about a month after I got him. So it was like maybe March, April time frame. And where I live at, for some reason, they like to throw out fireworks all throughout the day. And it gets me every now and again. I've gotten better now with him. But I remember my kids and I were sitting in the living room, we're watching TV. He's there on the floor laying next to me, and a firework goes off. And right away, he sees it, he knows, and he jumps on me and starts licking my face. And here I am having Huey licking my face. I'm getting aggravated because he's licking my face. I'm like, Huey, hey, get off. And my wife comes out of the bedroom and was like, hey, you okay? And I was like, yeah, he's just right here licking my face. He's like, he's doing his job. I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, are you thinking about the firework? I'm like, honestly, no, I'm not. And so that's his way of bringing me back to the present, to the moment. And to this day, I mean, I've gotten better to where he's laying down, a firework will go off, and he'll just look at me. He's like, hey, you okay? I'm like, I'm good, buddy. Because okay, so then he goes and lays back down.
Yeah. Oops, okay. You want to get up on my lap? Okay. And are you guys, it's pretty well 24/7?
Yeah.
You guys, wherever you go?
Wherever I go, he goes.
Yeah. And there's a calming presence.
Oh, yeah.
And Mary talked a lot about building trust, I guess you with the program, but then between the handler and the dog. Has that process been also, we were talking about just the healing journey that veterans face. And so wherever you were in 2010 or 12, that, and then in 16 when you got started, has being part of the program and having Huey around, I mean, obviously the answer is yes, but any other kind of examples or demonstrative ways in which it's kind of changed how you live your life?
Well, a lot has to do with crowded areas, and I have to trust him in order for him to be able to, I guess, maneuver me around, making sure that I'm feeling comfortable, making sure that I'm okay. And I have back pain and knee issues, so he knows when my pain is gonna get to a certain level where I have to sit down. Well, it gets before it gets to that level where actually, I have to take a break or I have to take pain meds or whatever, and he'll literally just dead stop. Like I'll be like, okay, come on, let's go, and he's like, no, and I have to step back and acknowledge, okay, well, what the hell's going on? And he's like, oh, okay, my back's hurting. He knows, or my knees are hurting. And sometimes he'll even get in between my legs when I'm being stubborn. He'll get between my legs to where I don't move. And so that's when, okay, I got to realize, all right, I got to take some pain meds or I have to sit down. And recently, about a year ago, I suffer from migraines as well. I was driving over here, and he's licking my ear. I was like, well, why are you licking my ear? Because he sits in the back, and he licks my ear. And I was like, well, why are you licking my ear? And sure enough, later on, I ended up getting a migraine. But it took a couple of times to realize that, okay, he's letting me know before my
Something's
migraine,
coming.
before my migraine escalates. So I mean, it's all that kind of those little details that we have to pay attention and acknowledge, and trust, what he's letting us know, trust what the dogs are letting us know.
Right. Okay. Well, then, just in kind of a final comment, if there's a vet out there thinking about this, I guess I was wondering what you might tell them. And then also, we hope this gets out to some people who might want to support the program. And so if there's some potential funders or donors out there, what might you tell them about the program and why they might want to make this one of their charitable contributions?
I mean, this program changes a veteran's life. Not even a veteran, but anybody who could use a service dog, it changes their lives in a great way. I mean, it gives them that hope and just the love of the animals. I mean, it saved my life. So yeah, I mean,
You're here because of Huey?
yeah, I'm here because of Huey and Mary.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. And what about a vet who might be on the fence thinking about it if they're kind of in the midst of that struggle, that transition?
Don't hide. That's what I did for many years, is hide and avoid everything and not ask for help. The help is there. They just have to reach out and just grab it. OFP is just a phone call away, and
Right. We talk a lot about, it's okay not to be okay, but you're not alone, and so it's also okay to ask for help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we want to make that. Okay. Anything else you'd want to, that we didn't cover? We really appreciate you taking time, and you've been waiting for us, and so thank you for
No,
having
thank
Huey
you guys
here.
for having us. I mean, I appreciate you guys' time and coming here. I just want you to let George know that my daughter has a secret crush on him now. So.
All right. Well, we will make sure that story gets told. So, well, thank you very much. Really
thank
appreciate
you
you being here. Okay, thank you.
Ah,
And you too,
buddy.
Hugh.
Okay. All right. So I am sitting here with Morphet Flores and Loki, whose chin I've been scratching all day. It's amazing. I might pet him, but you want to give us a little introduction?
Of course.
How you served, how you maybe got into this?
Right. So I joined the military in 2012, and I was enlisted, active duty for 7 years. I was a sergeant. I originally went in as a combat engineer, and right after I enlisted, I went to boot camp, and a month later, I deployed to Afghanistan. So I kind of learned everything on the fly.
Yeah.
And our job over there was route clearance. Basically, what that means is we went out and looked for bombs. We clear IEDs. We build new structures for new bases, or not even bases, he's getting excited, little outposts that we do. And it was a little tough, The first 2 months over there, we lost 2 brothers right away off the bat. And then every day after that was constant go, 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 emotions up, down. You really can't think about the next day. You kind of have to focus about that day, that time, that hour, because if not, you'll get other people killed.
Yeah.
So that was a little tough. So then I did all that, got back home, and then I decided to go into special operations. So I went to special operations. I went to EOD school, which is an explosives ordnance explosive school. So I did that for a little bit. And prior to graduating from that school, I realized I had some issues with my memory. I had TBI, I had concussions. I had both my eardrums blown out. Everything, the works, the whole PTSD stuff, the whole mental health, the whole invisible wound, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I kind of just got out after that. I was medically retired after that. And then I kind of just traveled the world for a little bit. And then I realized that, I do have some problems. I was going to school not too far from here at a community college, and I ended up with like a .08 GPA, and I realized that life started going downhill from there. And I started losing brothers every year to suicide that I deployed with to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I started realizing why they were doing that. I started having those same thoughts and emotions and stuff like that. So this was kind of like the last hope. I was in the Veterans Center at one of the community colleges, and there was a pamphlet there that had Operation Freedom Paws on there. I'm like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. So I reached out to them, and then about a month went by, and I came in for an interview. They talked to me, and one line that I won't forget from Mary and this other gentleman, named David. He's not here with us anymore. And I told them kind of like the same story I was telling you, and they didn't say nothing. They were kind of just looking around like everyone is right now. And they just gave me a hug and said, hey, we got you, brother. We got you. And that was the first time that I really started trusting anybody, because it was hard to trust anyone, especially when you get to that high capacity mentality-wise in war. When you come back, you're just downhill peak from there.
Yeah.
So I couldn't trust anyone. I didn't want to trust anyone. I tried all the help you can get. Group therapy, counseling, you name it, I've done it, everything. Nothing worked. So then I got matched with Loki soon after that, and he just changed my life. All I wanted was just to be normal. That's it. Just a quiet mind and a peaceful heart. And I couldn't get that. But Loki and Operation Freedom Paws kind of provided that for me. And I never looked back. And ever since then, I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted a quiet life, quiet the noise. I couldn't even go to Walmart. I was still enlisted back in the time when I'm reflecting now. I would get ready on the weekends, right? Take a shower, get ready, get in my car, drive to the store. This was in Louisiana. I was driving to Walmart. One thing that I was looking that was out of place, one person didn't look at me right, the parking spot wasn't what I wanted, just go right back home.
Yeah.
And that would happen with everything. Everything I would do happened like that. So I was like, okay, I need some help.
We should do something.
Right, we should probably do something about this, because I already knew the direction I was heading.
Sounds getting me. Okay.
So I kind of already knew the direction I was heading in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good. Dependencies, bad habits, all that stuff. Pushing people away, playing the victim of my own life, right? Blaming, getting drunk and just blaming, oh, it's my PTSD, I'm a combat vet, whatever, right? So I got tired of playing that victimhood mentality. So then I got matched with Loki, and I never looked back. He's the catalyst who allows me to do everything that I wanted to do. Everything that I want. My life was on pause for like the last 7-8 years. And it wasn't until the last 4 years where I've been able to actually do everything that I wanted to do. Back to who I am, because I actually have quite a bit of a story, my background. At 14, I was an engineer, mechanical design engineer, designing CT scan machines and MRI machines for Philips in nuclear medicine division in Milpitas. I did that at 14. At 18, I played soccer in Brazil, professional, and I played professional in England at 18. And then after that, I deployed to Afghanistan, went to special operations, started school, got Loki, and then I started working in the Veterans Center in Santa Cruz at Cabrillo College. And I ended up taking over that place. I was a fellowship team leader, and then I started helping student veterans with their work, with their stuff. And then I started the Student Veteran Endowment, a foundation under the Cabrillo Foundation, because what was happening was that student veterans were going to class, but they weren't graduating. The success rate and the retention rate was dropping every year, every semester. So I was like, okay, what's going on? What's the problem here? Well, every time I go to class, I'm thinking about how am I going to take care of my family? I don't have money to feed my kids. I don't have money for maintenance, food, whatever it was. Everything came back to money. I'm like, okay. So I started a foundation for them. In the last 2 years, we raised 100K. And we started it during COVID. So everything was all virtual. That was the toughest part, So raising money like that, and then now it's like we have passive income coming every month now because of our stories and our testimonies and all the success rates that we have now. Not just that. Sorry, I've even started 2 businesses now. So I have Progressive, which is this one, coaching, which is a consulting life coaching business now. So I coach student veterans because I was a student veteran. I coach student athletes. I was a student athlete. I played 1 semester at De Anza College up in Cupertino. And then that's when I got invited to go to Pele's Academy in Brazil. And then they offered me a contract to play there. But my ex-wife at the time, I was young, dumb in love, and I came back for her. And then I stopped playing soccer. I played for the Earthquakes for a little bit on the reserve squads, but it wasn't the same anymore. So then I started on 2 businesses. I have a 3D printing business as well, where I take your plastics, your household plastics that you can't go get money for, and I grind it down, melt it, and spool it, and now that's your new 3D printing paper. And I make, I'm trying to get county contracts right now so I can make garden stuff, for the city, out in the city parks, to get those contracts and just use it through recycled plastics with new innovation material. So I do that, and I also have the coaching business now, and that Progressive coaching business, I'm actually integrating it into this program now so that new clients can get to the level that I'm at, whether it's the self-awareness, the resiliency, the emotional intelligence, the leadership, the self-accountability. What we focus on is self-awareness, direction, and freedom. The mindset, the motivation, the habit building, the goal setting. We do vision boarding, journaling, everything like that. And like I said, my life was on hold for about 7 years, 7 years. And the hardest part is that could have been the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that's the toughest part. And I kind of found my passion through all my pains. And now I kind of put it all together and kind of just spit it out, regurgitated about like, hey, this is me now. This is who I truly am. And I was only able to do that through Operation Freedom Paws. And that was like my last resort. And it was tough, it was really tough. Going through the program was tough. Staying consistent with the program was tough. The mindset was tough. Coming back every week was tough. So I was going to school with that. I was going to community college. And then while I was doing all this, I went straight from community college straight to graduate school down in Monterey. So that was even tougher on that because I was doing like 3 different majors, 2 different languages and stuff like that. So it was overwhelming. And Loki was there every day, sitting by my bed, waking me up in my nightmares, providing that support that I needed in class because I wasn't even able to go into class when I first started college. I would just tell myself, just go to the class, Tell the teacher like, hey, you're all messed up inside, tell him, and then let's just see what happens. And he was like, yeah, just come in class. I told him like, hey, I'm probably not gonna pass this class or this semester, but I just wanna be here so my body can get used to it. So it was all a mental battle for the most part. So I kind of lassoed all that 4 or 5 years and I put it into that program. And I have tremendous success with it now. I even have an AI platform where I get all of your emotional data and I collect all of your emotional data. And we do, have you heard of the Myers-Briggs personality test? Mm-hmm. Right? So I incorporate all that, the Myers-Briggs assessment test, all these different tools and assessments. I incorporate it into our weekly one-on-ones in our group sessions so I can get a better understanding of what's the best way to transfer this knowledge that I have to you. Mm-hmm. Are you more introverted, extroverted, logical, irrational thinker? What's the best way to, so I basically do a profile on them. I profile everyone and I make sure I know exactly the best way to teach you that knowledge so that they can have that opportunity, whether it's they can feel it, see it, or hear it. It's going to connect through one of those. And I'm able to do that. And by doing that, their lives change in seconds, like in weeks. Literally, like years of trauma just goes by in weeks. And it's super rewarding to me because before I introduced anything to them, that was the rest of their lives. And that used to be that used to be the rest of my life. And I don't want anyone else to go through that type of pain ever again. So now I'm coming back here and supporting any which way I can. Mm-hmm. I do outreach speeches as well under the Operation Freedom Paws umbrella. I have my own podcast, I have my own YouTube channels, I have my own websites. I've done it all. Yeah, I've taught myself everything.
I'm wrestling with the sunshine. Better.
Yeah, so it's a lot, but I feel like my life is barely starting right now, and it's humbling and it's motivating, but deploying, dealing with all the hardships and stressors during deployment was tough. I still have friends call me every day, every week, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Say, hey, brother, I just want to talk to you. I said, I got you. Don't worry. Call me anytime, So it feels good knowing that some of my brothers and sisters have someone to talk to, someone to call 24/7, doesn't matter. That's why I give out a lot of free material on my websites for that purpose, for them. I have free ebooks, web workshops, workbooks, vision boards. I do free journaling courses for them. I bring that awareness to them because sometimes it's that we're distracted a lot. And whether it's our own mindset or everything out there, it's just understanding yourself. And once they understand that, those combat veterans understand like where that true nature of that mindset comes from, where their reactions come from. It might have come from last week. It might have come from last year, but there's a way to figure it out. There's a pattern, and human data analysis shows everything. Psychology is a rule of average, and you can kind of work yourself off of that. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure.
Well, and I'd say like even just, hearing all of that, that persona is just a super high functioning person. Like to even manage all of that stuff. And as somebody who is in the media industry as well, like all the posts and how do you link it and like how do things build on each other.
Everything,
so even just that industry, but plus all the other ones that you're doing and giving back. Can you maybe talk about, I know what you were saying is like your life was on hold, but once you got Loki, like, I feel like the way I'm visiting this is kind of like an onion where it was like, all right, now we're going to walk into this place and now we're here, we're safe. Like maybe like what are some of the emotions or the sense of safety that he provides for you?
Definitely. So one of the biggest problems that I had was PTSD. And what PTSD entails and what it incorporates is a bunch of different factors. It's PTSD, it's insomnia, it's nightmares, it's anxiety, it's panic attacks, it's frustrations, it's triggers, stressors, random things out of the ordinary. And all that comes at once. One of those is gonna trigger by whatever you look at.
Yeah.
And that was happening with me here. After they kind of gave me that hug that first day and said, hey, we got your back, I kind of held on close to that gentleman who's not here with us anymore. And every time I came, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I was very quiet, very timid, not talking at all. Just to talk to you guys took me a long time. It took me about 4 or 5 years just to talk to anybody. So that was like my first few interactions with other people. I was isolated at home before that. So coming here was a very, very big step for me. And I knew I had to do it because I knew the only other option was not being here,
Yeah.
So every day for class, the good part about the program is that you understand what's gonna happen. It's not too overwhelming on your mindset. So they make sure to keep it that way. They make sure like, hey, it's okay. Like, hey, we're just gonna do a little training today. They're not like, hey, we're gonna do training. We're gonna do it 5 times. You're gonna do it this way. That's what I came in thinking because everyone was military here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, they're gonna keep it like very structured, very like on point, and their knife hand and stuff is the mentality. And so it wasn't like that. And they were very homing, welcoming, and supportive. They get everything that I didn't have, that I was looking for: the compassion, the sympathy, the empathy. I didn't have any of that, and they kind of slowly just kind of shine that on me without even indirectly. They kind of do that indirectly. And little by little, I started understanding it. And by me keep coming back, because you can come up to 3 times a week. And I would come every single day, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and the weekends, because I knew that, hey, I love being around here. I love this new environment. It's pretty cool. And yeah, it's just, they know, once you're in this program and they see someone new, they know. Yeah. They know whether it's looking at you or they know whether it's by looking at your service dog. Just by looking at him, they can know a lot about me, Like right now, I'm very calm. He's calm too. A little earlier when I first started talking, he was kind of up in my face a little bit because my nerves were a little up. Yeah, so like I said, they know it. The dogs, the program, the curriculum, the coaching, the instructors, everything, all those variables and those factors come at you once, and they just kind of just shine that light on you and blanket you with all that stuff. And it really, really helped a lot. I was a little scared, of course, at the beginning because I didn't trust anyone. I was like, I don't want to do that, So it was hard to push myself again. But my purpose was very big. My purpose was this or nothing, And once I started working with Loki and doing that puppy yoga, and really talking to him, because in the beginning, you can tell who's new to the program because they don't talk to the dogs. They're just holding on to their service dog, like, okay, I'm just gonna walk with them, sit, down, stay, right? Like for me, I'm like, oh, come here, Loki, and hug him, kiss him, and everything, right? But at first, you're not like that. But slowly, when you start hugging your dog and doing the puppy yoga and start doing more of the training, you're like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. I just needed to hug a dog or something. And it really changed your life. And they also have psychologists here towards the end of the training session. And they ask you awareness questions, 5 things you can hear, 4 things you can touch, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that really helped out too. The meditation, the breathing, talking one-on-one, because sometimes we'll be training and we just have to pull off to the side. I have back issues. I've been blown up in Afghanistan. I have back problems, knee issues, shoulder, neck, spinal. I have like 2 herniated discs in my lower back still. I have a problem. I have like this whole leg's messed up. So I would stop training and just sit down. And there's a lot of us like that with disabilities. And as we sat down, we just sat there and just watched everybody training. And then they would have a psychologist or someone, a therapist would come around and be like, hey, how's it going? And just by interacting with somebody like that, like, hey, I'm having some pain. Because once you can admit that pain, it makes it real now. It makes it more intimate. Because before in the military mindset is no pain, right? No pain, just keep going, push through it. Here is where you can kind of express that now. You can kind of take off your cape, and kind of put it to the side. And once I did that, I was like, okay, I'm fully in, I guess. I'm fully in, so I'm like, yeah, I hate this. I hate this training. I don't like this. I don't want to be here right now. I just want to go home, They're like, well, just give it one more try. Just those words and that kindness and that support. I was like, okay, I'll give it another try, just for you. And sure enough, that happened. And then the next week happened, the next week. And I kept coming back. And then I would journal. I would journal after class. Because I've been writing since I was, for the longest time. Since I was maybe 10, I still have journal books. And I would just write, how was your day today? What went right for class? What went wrong? What did I hate? What did I not like? And I would just self-therapy myself, self-soothe myself, I guess. And that's what I want to incorporate here now, is kind of bring that here so that just kind of solidify it all together. Mm-hmm. But the training, we do training inside, we do training upstairs, depending on what part of the program or the weeks you're in. You do the beginning or advanced training. And the advanced training wasn't too much of a change for me because I didn't do anything else. This was all I did. It was home, here, home, and back. Mm-hmm. And so I would just train with Loki every day. We would do puppy push-ups. Did they show you the puppy push-ups?
No.
So it's just, I can show you real quick.
I'd love that.
Loki, you want to do a push-up? It's not like a push-up. It's just a sit, and then a down. And then, so that's one push-up. And then you hold it for 5 seconds, and you say, ready, Loki, sit. And then you go down again, right? So we do that in class too. So those are puppy push-ups. So I would do them every day with him. We would do all the commands: a sit, stay, down, stand.
I saw your push-ups. They were beautiful. They were amazing.
If you notice, the puppies are always in a push-up position. They're always on the 4 feet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, like I said, it was tough. It was a tough transition. Operation Freedom Paws and Loki really, all I had was negative energy inside. That's all I had was negative energy. Loki, sit down. Sit down. Sit. Thank you. Hold on. You can give him a treat. Hold on. Wait, Loki. There you go. Oh. And then if you say mano or paw,
Mano?
Mano. There you go.
Thank you. That is a serious mano. You got big manos, buddy. Do you speak Spanish to him?
I do. Yeah, I'm Mexican and Peruvian.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad was born in Peru, and my mom was born, she was born here, but whole life in Mexico.
I went down to Peru for my first time last
nice.
year. It was outstanding.
The ayahuasca ceremony?
Maybe. I might cut that from the show, though. Learned a lot.
I'm telling you, all that stuff is really good for veterans.
It is, and actually, that would be a whole other show. Mano, give me
Aaron
Mano.
Rodgers, he did ayahuasca in Peru.
I know.
Yeah.
He went down, found the medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess just to be time sensitive for the rest of our podcast, but it sounds like you've gained a ton, not just a very good friend, but kind of your sense of self back. So for anybody who's watching this or who might be kind of to that point where it's this or bust, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Of course, yeah. I have a quote. I have a lot of quotes, but one of them that sticks out is sacrifice is temporary, only with the right mindset. That's one. And another one that I have is irreversible change without regret is cleansing. Because once you can look back without regret at your life, it's super cleansing. No remorse, no hatred, just full of happiness and love, I guess, you know. I think the answer is just love, because once you're just happy, nothing else can go wrong. You know, you're full of positive energy and those positive vibes, and you start gravitating and attracting more people like that. So it just takes one thought. Small hinges swing big doors. That's what I would say to the people, to the audience out there who want to make change, but it's really hard to make change. Or for veterans, you know, don't give up. Call someone. There's always someone to call. And the last one I'll say. Sorry, I can talk all day about this. Sorry about that. Is be uncomfortable so that the people you love can be comfortable. Because that uncomfortability is only temporary, because it's a sacrifice, but with the right mindset, it's temporary.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you again for having me on the
awesome.
podcast. I appreciate it. No, thank you again. I appreciate it, the support for allowing us to be on your show. So thank you.
Yeah.
While I was sitting back there, I was doing some research on you guys on your podcast. So it's pretty cool. You guys have a lot of guests. You know, that's awesome. I appreciate it. So thank you again for allowing us to be on.
Well, one of our goals with Hidden Pearls is to find the people who are the Hidden Pearls. So
awesome.
You two both are one of our Hidden Pearls.
I appreciate that.
So,
thank you again.
Thank you so much for being on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Just being on location, it provides such a different energy to meet some of the team members and just see the daily operations and how much actual love goes into this. And I think, you know, the one thing that everybody keeps saying is just compassion and love and kindness and the little ripples and, what do you say? Tiny hinge swings a big door. So just knowing that those small daily actions that you're either taking to be kind or to extend kindness to other people, you have no idea how big that impact can be. So just a reminder to always be loving, to always be compassionate. If you want to get more involved with our show, you can follow us, subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, and if you'd be so kind and leave us a rating, it helps us to reach more people and just spread our message even more. So either way, we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this. There were a lot of different organizations and things listed, and those will all be in the show notes, so you guys can click on that. And we will also be making a donation to Operation Freedom Paws. So very excited to be able to do that and just spread some more love. So happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, and just on our last guest, as you'll see, talked about his search for a calm mind and a peaceful heart. And I guess we would wish that for everybody. And if you're not quite in that place, remember it's okay to not be okay. And there are people there waiting and willing to help you from different resources. And if you need any links, let us know. So happy holidays.
Go Niners.